You really need to pay attention to what aligns with you, what your gifts are, what fills you, and focus on that, and then kind of hone in on that niche and see what information is out there in that thing, and then stay focused on it. Go ahead and start some different things, but stay in that avenue.
Yeah.
Don't just be all over the place, because that is an incredibly costly thing, is to just keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping.
What is the stewardship that you've been called to uphold courageously?
Welcome to Courageous Stewards, the podcast where legacy meets leadership.
We believe stewardship isn't just about managing resources. It's about multiplying impact, honoring purpose, and building with eternity in mind. Each week, we dive into business-focused discussions on real estate investing on a foundation of faith and family.
We have a desire to inspire listeners with a heart to reclaim their time, talents, and treasures for something greater. Whether you're growing your portfolio, leading a business, or a family, we need to become the best version of ourselves.
This is your space to gain wisdom, walk in courage, and steward what matters most.
Let's build what lasts. Let's lead with love.
Let's become courageous stewards.
Welcome back to another episode of the Courageous Stewards podcast. I'm Sean Skyver.
And I'm Jake Tracy.
And we're going to be talking about how we steward what God gave us and how we do what He assigns to us. Today we're going to be talking about basically being a doer and the three different types of doers that you can categorize. One being a good doer, neutral, and then a reckless doer, and kind of why it matters. So looking into this, we want to focus on the fact that execution is stewardship and that our intentions don't produce results. So the type of doer you are matters.
I think you need to remember that your life and your business, your marriage, your portfolio, they reflect how you do. And the word do is what we're really diving into today. You can just be a doer of things, and we're going to talk more about that, but what kind of a doer are you? Are you a good doer? Are you just an average, a neutral doer, careless? And maybe you're a reckless doer, someone who is causing more problem than they are solution.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think that it'd be kind of fun to define the differences between those three categories and what kind of a doer. I think the funny thing is I look down through the notes that we've created, and I can see myself in some of these categories in each of these departments. And I know everybody falls short in some capacity. And you kind of got to look at each one of these and say, well, in that category, I'm probably a neutral doer or maybe a reckless doer in some areas that I need to improve on. So I think this will be beneficial to our audience in that regard, where maybe you can generally say, I am a good doer. I meet this criteria, but I see myself in this reckless doer one. And I need to improve in that particular category and bring that, level that up to being a good doer. So let's start out by just talking about what a good doer is. A good doer is someone that acts with clarity and discipline and alignment. They use systems rather than emotion, right? So many people just react to their emotion rather than have systems in place for how to handle different scenarios.
Yeah, this is the type of doer you are, and this is your vision, your mission behind what you're doing, and making sure that you have that basically in front of you at all times, because all of these are about action.
They are.
They're all talking about action, but it's really the gravity and the magnitude and the focus of said action, right? And making sure that it's good action, not just action just because you want to do that thing, right, that you do it right and do it well.
So are you a person who uses systems and not emotion? Maybe that's the better way to approach this, is to ask the question. Like, for instance, are you somebody that finishes what they start? I think there are a lot of people out there who start an incredible number of things only to realize they don't have the capacity to finish.
Yeah, this is so important because you have to, when you're doing this and you're trying to be a good doer on this side of it, it's keeping promises to yourself and, like you said, finishing those tasks. But it's more importantly, it's keeping promises to others also through that. You have to do both to fall into this good doer category, right?
Right.
If I say I'm going to do something for myself or my business, I better get that thing done. And then if I tell somebody else I'm going to do it, that's a differentiating factor in the action.
Yeah.
It's going to get done, and it matters because I want people to trust and believe, and I finish what I start.
Yeah. Another good attribute, recognizable attribute of a good doer is someone who communicates clearly.
Yeah, I struggle with this one.
Do you?
Yeah.
You feel that way?
Yeah, I do. So it just depends on the scenario. It's like you were saying earlier. I can be all of these pretty easily.
Yeah.
But even with my son and the boys' business and stuff, I had Brett do some work for some of my businesses, and he would come back, and I was trying to do feedback, and I got frustrated because I didn't feel like his quality on some of the things was up where it should be. But I later realized in that conversation, I was being nice dad when I was telling him what needed done. Just like, hey, do it well, just get this done. We just got to have this finished. Don't worry too much about how good it is. I literally told him that, and then I got frustrated that it wasn't at a high quality. Well, I didn't tell him it. I had high expectations that it needs to be done really, really well. And so it was me in communicating that. So having that clarity in your communication is pivotal for being a good doer and good action.
Yeah. So you feel like that's something maybe you fall short on and could improve on?
Sometimes, because I'm a people pleaser a little bit, and I got to work on that. And sometimes what that comes with is a lack of directness, just being direct.
Yeah.
My son is perfectly capable. We know the boss-employee relationship in those moments. He's perfectly capable taking direct input. I just need to be willing to give that direct input. So that is an area for me in regards to being a good doer is clarity in my communication. So
Yeah, there's another one here that kind of aligns with that, and that is to create order and not chaos. Good doers create order, not chaos.
Yeah, that can be a communication thing also, but creating order, not talking in generalities, just being like, oh, just this or that, and keeping it vague.
Right.
Like expectations, when you're creating order, your expectations need to be simple, but they need to be clear and defined.
Right.
That way there's no confusion. You give generalities to everybody, and then you wonder why your team's not doing what you want because you're thinking what you want, but you're telling them vaguely kind of your idea of what you think it should turn out like. That creates chaos.
Yeah. You have an expectation that people understand what's in your head rather than coming out of your mouth.
Yes, that is going to be something.
That creates a reckless doer.
Yeah.
The opposite of that would be a good doer.
Yeah.
Somebody who's clearly able to communicate expectations and create order in the process based on what it is and how you're communicating to the people around you.
Yeah, I'm not a great teacher for that reason, because when I'm trying to show somebody something, I do have the mentality that they know what I know, or they didn't get it fast enough. And it's like, I've got to learn that, no, it's on me to communicate clearly, to be direct, and to give that clarity so they know what to do. But yeah, it's very true. I think it up here, but I don't speak it, and my expectations for them are higher than they should be when we're starting where we are. So
that kind of brings us back to this whole scenario that we can see ourselves in every one of these categories in some capacity. The idea behind this conversation is to help you recognize maybe the shortcomings and maybe some of the things that you do very well. Lean into those even more to create this capacity more in your own life to be a good doer. Maybe pass off some of those things that you're not great at to allow somebody else to be a good doer in those areas. Like you're probably not going to be a good doer in every
That's interesting.
category.
Yeah, interesting.
We've talked about this in previous episodes where you need to try to bring team members on who have the capacity to handle the things that you're not great at and let them thrive in those. And sometimes being a good doer just simply is you defining what you're great at and what you're not great at, and being able to communicate and delegate those things that you're not as great at to somebody else who can handle those.
Find other good doers to do those things.
Yes.
And then you're in a good spot, because you're so right. We're not sitting up here sharing this information like you and I've got it all figured out.
Oh my goodness.
And we're perfect and we're not still growing.
Right.
That was great what you just shared in regards to just reflecting on these and going, what are ones I am a good doer in? What are some that I can grow in? And what are some that I'm a little reckless in? And there's all different reasons for why we would be one of those three in any given circumstance. But yeah, I really like what you said.
I see that in our relationship, just in our partnership. There are some of these things on this list as we go through them that I see myself as not great at. I would categorize myself maybe even in the reckless doer category.
Yep, me
but
too.
when I look to you for your leadership in that area, it's much better in some ways than mine is. Being able to recognize that and allow you to excel in the thing that you're great in sometimes propels, your business far beyond what you could
true.
do yourself. So what are some examples of being a good doer?
Yeah, defining rules, systems. A small example is being a good doer, especially in like business and real estate, things like that, is trying to control emotion being in decision making, right? So like you talk systems and process a lot. A really simple one of being a good doer in this role in this business and building a real estate portfolio is having a simple process to look at a deal and analyze it, or what we call underwrite, where you run all the numbers of income and expenses of the cost of that property truly, and assessing whether or not it's a good deal or a good purchase or not, right? Because being reckless would mean you just look at it and you go, there's a house, I can buy it and I can rent it, and you pay it. Your rent's way below what the market rent is. You've got no cash flow on it. You're backwards in it, and then stuff's broken in there, right? That's the reckless side of action. Versus, let's have a few things in place, checks before we even purchase this. So that's a really simple example of a good doer in our space.
So systems to create unemotional offers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than just going off of pure emotion. I love this property. We're buying it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's reckless.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So I would say some traits that you can consider as a good doer are consideration in what is just the right thing to do. How can you do that thing to the best of your ability?
Right. And that's what's funny about that one is if it feels like the hard decision, it's often the right decision.
Right.
It is always the opposite. If it's the easy one, you can probably do better. So just try to keep that in your perspective when you are asking yourself that question about what's the right thing to do here.
Right.
It's often the harder one.
Be self-motivated. Oftentimes, good doers are those that are self-motivated and those that build systems that outlive emotion.
Yeah. I like these last two a lot. Self-motivated is great.
Yeah.
Self-motivated is great. But it's kind of a very generalized term. And I don't know, for me, you got to dig into that a little bit, because self-motivated is an idea, almost a bit of a fantasized term for what really happens in the background. Because sometimes you're self-motivated. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and it goes because it's an emotion almost, right?
Right.
You're feeling inspired. You're feeling motivated. Well, what happens on the days you're not? So that self-motivated thing, you got to be careful with that, because there's mornings that it should be self-intentionality or self-discipline, right? That's the morning you get up and I don't want to do it. Do it anyways.
Yeah.
Self-motivated comes with some serious territory and some serious gravity in regards to choosing over feeling. Yeah. So just be careful when you're trying to focus on that self-motivated term, because there's more to it. And then being self-aware. That has to go with that. Know who you are, know your triggers, know your shortcomings, and be keen to those and watch for them, because you're better equipped when that moment arises to go, nope, I'm challenging this today. I still got this. I don't feel it, but I'm going to do it. So be self-aware. And then having those systems that outlive emotion, you have to avoid this phenomena of blind action. That means you're just doing to do. Your head says we're doing stuff. We're making things happen, but you're probably, if you're not paying attention to looking at the action and what the value is being added to that situation, you're just having blind action. And then what you've done now is you've mixed up movement with progress, and you can't do that. Just because you're moving and checking boxes doesn't mean you're making progress. You could be sitting completely still or going backwards and moving and doing things. So have those systems that outlive emotion and help avoid those traps of blind action and you confusing movement with progress.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. I say we move on to the neutral doer and kind of define what that looks like from our perspective. A neutral doer is someone who just does enough to not fall behind. I kind of look at the neutral doer from the lens of an employee without buy-in, kind of.
Yeah.
That's
run into
kind of
that a
how
lot.
I perceive it. Just somebody who's going through the motions. I get a paycheck. I'm here for this amount of hours. I know the tasks basically that I have to accomplish. So I'm just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, that's a good example. Treading water, you're there, you're in it, you're doing it like you said it. Or that's not on my job description, or it's above my pay scale. And it's like, that's a neutral doer. Like, okay, you stay there and you'll continue to be a contributor and be that neutral doer. Do the bare minimum, get done, and go home at the end of the day. I totally agree.
Right. Which kind of brings me to it's somebody who waits for clarity instead of creating clarity.
Yeah.
That non-actionable, I don't even know how to define it, I guess.
A neutral doer is going to lack ambition and initiative, right?
Yeah, right.
Because the neutral doer is the one sitting and waiting till they're told to do the next thing, and then everything that's on their task list is clearly defined with a process, because they won't do anything outside of that. There's no drive or ambition. So a neutral doer is that person that just doesn't want really any more than what they have, and they're not going to do more than they need to.
Right. They live in reaction mode. They have good intentions, but inconsistent execution.
Yeah. So their intentions are to do their job like they're supposed to,
right.
But their execution may not be good, and they're not anticipating. They're just reacting to the things that fall on their plate. They're not being proactive, because proactive takes the ambition and initiative to be forward thinking, and it has to matter to you more than the box that's on the list of to-dos. So having that gravity in it. This is a good one. Yeah.
I see this a lot in the landlord space with folks who are landlords and only fix things when forced to. Like, they're not proactive. They're, again, reactive. And therefore, they're not on top of maybe some of the repairs that they should be. Rather, they just wait on the tenant to say, hey, this is broken. Hey, this is leaking.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a problem here you better address. Yeah, that creates more problems than solutions, and it falls into that neutral doer category.
Yep.
Business owners who plan more than they execute.
This is movement, not progress.
Yes.
Like, you have to balance some planning, because you should be planning, because that's pivoting more towards taking good, effective action. But you can't overplan, or you're just spinning in circles. Yeah. So you do have to do both.
Here's one that pivots a little bit to the parenting side, and that is parent who talks values but doesn't model them.
Yeah.
Ouch.
We both know this.
Sure.
I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but you know what my boys replicate?
What they see.
My actions.
Yeah.
My actions are what they replicate. I can tell them all day to do this or do that. Yeah. But if I'm living it out, they follow that.
So much easier said than done. And I know a lot of people would think the same thing. They're like, yes, I want to do that, but I inherently find myself not doing it.
It gets hard too, and especially as they grow up. So when you have your family and you got your kids, as they start getting older, you kind of want to fit in and be their friend as they start to become the early teens and stuff. But you still got to be the parent first and the friend after. And that sometimes can blur the lines between what your values are in your household versus what you're doing. I struggle with that sometimes.
Sure, absolutely. And back to the investor side, one thing that we can talk about is an investor who analyzes forever but never writes offers. I find this one to be something that you graduate out of as you go from being a neutral doer to a good doer in a lot of cases, because when you first get started in the investment space, you're going to have to analyze a lot of properties before maybe you make your first offer or a series of offers, just because you're kind of learning the ropes. You're beginning to understand how this works. You're putting systems in place for what is important to you and what's not, and how to analyze the numbers on a deal. But soon then you need to graduate from that neutral analyzing only into the good doer of being confident in your analysis and pursuing offers regularly.
Yep, I agree with that. You level up. You get some experience. Your decision-making becomes more efficient, and it's less of the overthinking and having to sit there and grind every deal down to each number.
Yeah. So some traits of a neutral doer. We actually have already talked about this a little bit, but confusing motion with progress. You had discussed this a little bit. A lot of times folks think that just because they're moving, they are somehow progressing, and that's not always the case.
Not always.
In fact, I would say very frequently. we as a society are typically very active, and those activities don't necessarily lead to progress. And that's the goal in our conversation for the sake of this podcast, is to create progress in the things that you're doing, the tasks that you're involved in, and not just moving for the sake of moving.
You'll find yourself sometimes in a position, one of the traits where you feel overwhelmed because you never get ahead. And that comes with that same thing that Jake was just talking about, of just turning and moving and going. And the other trap here to be careful with is when you are building, and I don't care which type of doer you are on this one, but you're trying to build and you're always around people and you want to oftentimes compare. So it's just, don't feel overwhelmed with you not being as far along as you are. So be guarded that, be grateful, be careful, and don't compare. You will feel overwhelmed, and if you're not getting ahead, but make sure you dive into why that is. If you're a good doer, your actions are moving the needle forwards, and you have been making the right efforts, then recognize that it's okay that you're not as far along as you think you should be. And then the last one is like a neutral doer typically will rely on memory. We talked about this a minute ago, instead of system.
I find myself in this trap all the time.
We have it all up here, all that tribal knowledge, and we just think we're going to keep it and just do it, and then bring somebody on and then try to just tell them what to do, and it's going to work out. Systems, again, but that's a trait of a neutral doer, is just relying on memory instead of having things in place and documentation.
That's definitely one that I could improve on for sure. I tend to have things up in my head that I don't actually put down as a consistent system.
Yep.
I just refer back to it in my head. I've done it before. I'll do it again. It's the same thing.
Don't worry. I'll be doing a lot of that here soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the reckless doer.
Oh, yeah.
Let's define what a reckless doer is. That is someone who moves fast without direction, right? Somebody who makes emotional decisions and creates chaos instead of urgency. They leave collateral damage in their wake, basically.
That's the big one to pay attention to. You can go fast, you can make emotional decisions, but you'll often find yourself, if you're not taking time to reflect on the type of action and if it's going to be the right call or the right action or value add, you're going to have to be going back and undoing a lot of things that were done quickly and fast to fix it, to make it right.
Right.
Now, I don't want to say this with saying that you need to go back now and overthink everything again. We don't believe in perfection. We believe in progress and getting better over time. So don't let this be a thing where you don't move either. But recognize that going too fast and just frivolously doing things on blind emotion means you probably have to go back and fix a lot of stuff. And now you're slowing your progress down because you've made a decision too quickly without really reflecting on the type of action you were taking.
I think a lot of times, again, this is a series of graduations. Maybe you start out as a little bit of a reckless doer. A lot of us did when we first got started. Or, the thing is, you don't want to stay there.
Right.
Like, there may be times of, to your point, there may be times of reckless doing that turns into neutral doing, that turns into good doing. Yeah. It's a series of progress and growth that you learn from the time that you start into, hopefully what you become down the road. So that's our goal, is to encourage, I think, our listeners to graduate from where you are currently to the next best thing.
Yeah. So what are some examples of reckless doer? You might be looking at, again, investing, and like an investor buying on excitement, not numbers.
We talked about this earlier.
The first deal or something.
Right.
My story goes back to, I had shiny object syndrome on property one. I didn't buy the property, but I remember the price was awesome. I was super excited. It had foundation issues. And my wife was the one that actually was like, is this the one you want to be your first? That, for me, was going from reckless doing to good doing, because it was a minute of reflection on the action I was going to take. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, we're not buying this as our first one. It was going to be sitting for months empty with no cash flow. I was going to be paying for it and waiting for a foundation to get repaired, and it was a dead of winter. Mm. And so that was a perfect example of reckless doing transitioning very quickly into good doing through just filtering the decision that I was about to make.
Yep. What about starting things that you never finish? This is a big one.
I'm a finisher, but
There's so many people out there that are not.
Yes.
I mean, this is a real issue for a lot of folks out there. Maybe we specifically can't relate to this one, but there are so many people that start thing after thing after thing after thing and don't complete them.
And I do this sometimes. But I think when it comes to this idea on starting and not finishing, you have to focus on what your vision and your mission is and your goal. There has to be a defining thing that you're pointed at. So that way you can filter through. You might do some side projects. You might take this on or consider these things and start them. Maybe they don't work. And sometimes you got to not finish them.
You can pivot.
You go back and you say, okay, I'm staying here. We've had that experience a couple of times, even in our partnership.
Yep.
The idea here to stay away from is that you don't just jump on everything to try to do it because it looks enticing, because then you're wasting your time. Then you're starting and not finishing anything.
There's so much of that in today's society because we're constantly having things dangled right in front of our face.
Oh yeah, the carrots
You
are
can make
everywhere.
$10,000 a month if you do this.
Yep.
You can, you'll be a success if you do that.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And that's why you got to have vision. You really need to pay attention to what aligns with you, what your gifts are, what fills you, and focus on that. And then kind of hone in on that niche and see what information is out there in that thing, and then stay focused on it. Go ahead and start some different things, but stay in that avenue.
Yeah.
Don't just be all over the place, because that is an incredibly costly thing, is to just keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping.
What is the stewardship that you've been called to uphold courageously? That's where my mind goes, is continuing to direct yourself back to, this is the thing that I'm called to steward. Not all these other little things that keep coming up and sound interesting, but God has called you specifically to steward something well.
Yep.
What is that thing? Stay driven and focused towards that.
Yeah, that's really good. We were just talking about that the other day, and you've mentioned it before. What's going to create impact? What's going to create impact? So for me, I know my giftings tend to be finances, investing. Like money clicks for me. And so I know, like, my primary thing, I think, for the kingdom is going to be resources, financial resources.
Right.
And just growing that. I don't know that I've had a pull towards ministry and serving at the church and everything, but I don't know that that's my thing. God designed me for financials, no matter what, however you want to call it, financials and investing. So I know my gifting is there. That's where I need to focus.
Sure.
Is that I can build, and if I keep building that makes the most impact on his kingdom. So that's my lane.
Right.
But that's a great point to bring up, is like, where is your gifting?
Another small pivot on the reckless doer, and that is in the category of being an emotional parent or emotional parenting.
Okay.
This one is super hard.
Come on. It's like, I can't even speak on this because I drop the ball on this one sometimes.
I think we all do.
It's so funny. Sometimes I'm super dad, calm, patient,
Sure.
composed, listening, talking, giving good input. We're having good conversation, and we're moving forwards, and we're making progress. But I've also grabbed my son by his hoodie before and pulled him in and yelled at him for yelling at his brother.
Yeah.
Like after that, you go, what was I doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing the very thing I'm telling him not to do. It's just so emotional parenting is tough, but that's reckless, because when I have that moment, I'm going off blind emotion. I'm angry and I'm going to react.
Yep.
Right? That has not taken the filter to go from reckless doer to good doer at all. Like, I just deleted that filter button for a minute and just went straight to reckless.
Yeah.
And so those are the moments I reflect on. But that one's tough, but it is. That's a great example of home with reckless doing.
Yeah, that one's a challenge, I think, for a lot of people. And there are some that probably handle that very, very well on the regular. I would put myself in the category of struggling with that at times as well, where you allow blind emotion to trigger you and control how you handle a situation. And to your point, I don't remember if it was this podcast or a previous one, but you said your kids tend to recognize what you do and how you act more than they do the words that are coming out of your mouth and how you're instructing them.
Yeah.
So it's really important to behave in a manner that you would expect them to behave in as they grow and learn and improve. So I think there's room and challenge for all of us to maybe improve a little bit in that regard, to not necessarily be a reactive, emotional parent,
Yeah.
but rather assess and parent in love and kindness.
Yeah.
and from a place of hopefully improving your child's behavior or the situation that's being dealt with that particular time. So, leadership constantly pivoting. Leader constantly pivoting is an example of a reckless doer.
You're steering the ship.
Right.
The leader steers the ship.
Right.
If you're constantly pivoting and you're trying to get to a destination, or you have a vision board and you've got goals to hit that year or that 5-year mark, and you're constantly pivoting, you're just slowing down that journey. Any curve or any path the curve is not a straight line in business, in leadership. It's just not. There's ups and downs along the way. The trajectory just has to stay right and aligned with the goal. But too much pivoting is not healthy or efficient for anything. So recklessly just pivoting without some good thought process behind why and digging into it. Yeah, that's a good one for an example of that.
Right. So we've kind of hit all three: a good doer, a neutral doer, and a reckless doer. Let's give some steps on how to become a good doer, or how to kind of lean into that goal anyway. The first one that we have here is
your favorite.
Building systems. That would be calendars, SOPs, or standard operating procedures, and checklists. Just things written down. Create detail, create structure. That's what good doers have in place. It's just a series of systems that they've built.
And removing emotion from execution. Just pause.
Systems do that a lot, right?
They do, yeah. Systems do help with that considerably. But if you're in a moment where there isn't a system or thing to make a decision or a call or execute on, my word here for removing emotion from execution is pause. Stop for just a minute, breathe, think through it before you give an answer or a decision.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of different ideas for how to handle emotion like that, like counting for 10 seconds or going for a walk.
Take a drink of water at a meeting.
That's what
exactly.
I've heard. Yeah, those little pauses sometimes make all the difference in how you react emotionally. Mm-hmm. Number 3, create accountability with your spouse, a partner, a team member, your kids. Creating accountability will help you to become a good doer.
Yep.
For sure. Number 4.
Steward your time intentionally. So this is a great example of just, again, reviewing your actions you are taking, and are you stewarding intentionally with what you're doing or about to do. And because any decision you make is going to take time, it's going to cost you time.
Right.
So once you pull the trigger and make that decision, you're now invested in that decision. And so are you stewarding that time well, making that same decision?
Yep. Number 5, model the behavior you want your children to inherit. Now, that doesn't necessarily just mean in front of your children. That means in every area of your life. When you're at the ball field, when you're at the office, when you're standing in front of your spouse or significant other.
It's crucial.
When you're dealing with your children. Even one child being dealt with while the others stand there and watch how you handle that situation. Yep. I find myself falling short in this one regularly. And, I recognize that I need to do better in some of those situations, handle it differently.
Your reputation follows you all around, and your boys will hear about your reputation. Your kids will hear about your reputation.
Yeah.
Who's your dad? Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. That's your dad? I love, he's a great guy. He did so and so. Like, they're going to hear about you.
Yeah.
So you can pretend at home all you want, but you better be living it out there, because somebody's going to talk about you, and so you're gonna hear about it.
Model positive behavior everywhere.
Integrity all the time. Love that.
Yep. So in closing, stewardship is not about what you intend, it's about what you do. Be a good doer. If you would consider yourself to be a reckless doer or a neutral doer, put some steps into action to graduate into a good doer. That would be my encouragement. Hopefully you guys got some value from what it is that we talked about today. We encourage you to put something in place this week that will help you to graduate into being a good doer in some area of your life. I know I've taken some things from this that I would like to implement in my own life that maybe I fall short of in certain areas. So I'm looking forward to doing that in my own. Let us know in the comments if you have something that maybe you struggle with and you hope to graduate into being more of a good doer in a certain category. We love you guys. We're honored that you listen to us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us today on Courageous Stewards, where legacy meets leadership
and faith fuels the journey.
If this episode stirred something in you, share it with someone who's ready to step boldly into their calling. Subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected as we continue to explore what it means to lead with conviction, serve with excellence, and build with eternity in mind.
So until next time, keep showing up, keep stewarding well, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience in motion.